It's me, Sean Capri. I'm in my car, and you're listening to the most horsepowerful podcast on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford. He's the man on the moose, and on our journey today, it's been 365 days since the Series X and the Series S launched. So we're going to celebrate the birthday and talk about a bunch of games. So jump on into the Xbox Drive. Oh!
There's no power greater than X.
Hello, Sean Capri.
I'm in a weird mood, Ryan Turford. I was away. I got to listen to the show as a fan last week. I'm back home in Canada. Everything is great. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Again, it's like we're having it almost feels like it's the summer here in London, Ontario. It's like 20 degrees outside and the sun's shining, but it's like November 10th. So I have to keep reminding myself that winter's right around the corner. But
yep.
You know, we're feeling good here, but it's good to have you back, my friend. I know.
Yes.
Huge thank you to Steve for coming on the show last week and being awesome. Like I think we had a great show last week. So and he was doing a bit of the podcast work because he was also on Assemble XP last week and some other shows. Mm-hmm. So there you go. So a huge shout out to Steve for filling in Sean's unreasonably large shoes for last week's show. But glad to have you back in the world of Canada, my friend.
Dude, I think we're gonna have to have Steve on the show more often or something, because he's such a great writer and critical thinker. I have a lot of respect for Steve and the way that he jumped in. He also obviously had some time with Forza Horizon 5, which I thankfully to you were able to get 10 minutes of me chatting about that. And I have a lot of respect for Steve's approach to reviews, and it was kind of neat to hear certain things that he talked about that I didn't, and there were certain overlap that we both kind of touched on, and that always makes me do a little fist pump, like, yeah, where I said what the smart guy said. Like, that always feels good. So, but obviously we didn't talk ahead of time. We didn't compare notes, yeah. But always interesting, man. A lot of respect for him. So thanks to Steve. It was really just an impossibility, I think, Ryan, for us to do it any other way. I was traveling. I had a red eye. Like, there was no way. And in the end, we got a nice little treat with Steve being on the show. So shout out to Steve.
Plus, Steve did say on Assemble XP last week that, he's open to doing more podcasts. So if you have a podcast out there, you should maybe reach out to Steve because he's pretty awesome. You should have him on your show, or maybe we have him here more often. But anyways,
definitely
enough about that. It's time to clean the garage a little bit.
Enough of Steve.
Well, it's either that or we just never got to get to the actual show itself.
True. There's a lot to say.
Of course, if you want to support the show, there's a number of ways you can do that. Number one, you could subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. We're on all the things, so check us out on your podcast feed of choice. You can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and if you do, we will read it on the show during this segment. Also, we're on YouTube. If you want to see our beautiful faces every single week, we put up a video version of the show every single Thursday morning on YouTube, youtube.com/YouMeCapri. You can see Sean in his car. You can see all of the memes that I inserted in the Nintendo Drive this week. It's great.
Nice.
Go check over there. Speaking of YouTube, Sean, we finally hit the milestone that we've been chasing ever since we launched the YouTube channel about a year ago at this time. We have hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. So first of all, I want to extend a wholehearty thank you to everyone from the bottom of my heart for subscribing to us on YouTube, for checking out the videos, for liking them, for subscribing, for commenting on them. I've always loved making videos, and being able to do video versions of the show there is pretty awesome. So I love that people are checking them out there and interacting with us there. So huge thank you to everyone who subscribed there. Also, we did mention that there was going to be a giveaway of a 1-year Xbox Game Pass Ultimate code, and that is actually happening on Friday. So if you would like
Hi there, can I please get a large Diet Coke and a large coffee with 2 Splenda?
For sure, anything else?
That is all.
Perfect.
Thank you. It's very tempting to get that apple pie, Ryan. As soon as I finish, she says, is there anything else? And the apple pie shows up. I'm very tempted by it, but I know that it's not good for me, and I know that it's probably not as good as it looks. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's right there, Sean. It's right there. You can get an apple pie whenever you want. But
if people want to support us, they can tweet at McDonald's Canada and tell, like, for God's sakes, get these guys a sponsorship. They go to your restaurant every week. That is the one thing that I'll say. There, we said a lot of good things about Steve. He didn't go to McDonald's. Like,
that's
come
true.
On, Steve.
Look, he was at his house, though, Sean.
He could have had like a skip the dishes or something like that.
I did that for you, Sean, during Extra Life this year when you were streaming. I was like, I'm going to invoke my inner Sean and order McDonald's to my house. So I did.
Oh, very nice. Great. And Joe did the same thing in Rome, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. I interrupted you very rudely. It's part of the show.
That's what we do. People know what
That's
to
the
expect.
thing.
So,
That's
of
true.
course, if you want to be entered into that giveaway, because all you have to do
Oh,
to
yeah.
enter is just subscribe to us on YouTube. Head over to youtube.com/Yumi Capri. You have until Friday morning at 10 a.m. Standard Time now. Eastern Standard Time. I can actually say that now that the time's changed to enter, and then we will draw a winner on Friday morning. So we'll announce that on Twitter at Yumi Capri's on Twitter. We'll announce the winner there. Next up, patreon.com/Yumi Capri is where you get early access to this show as well as some exclusive content. So throw a little tip in the old tip jar if you feel so inclined, and you get early access to the content as well. And last but not least, we have to talk about this, Sean. Extra Life happened last weekend. Of course, you were in Rome, New York. I streamed from home, and I think we did a pretty successful job. I know we raised over $22,000 for Team Phoenix Overdrive, so we did an amazing job there. Helped out by the Cato bump, to your point a little bit earlier, but also everyone kind of came together and we had a great round of fundraising. So huge shout out to that. Again, if you folks at home want to still donate, I actually left the donation links in the show notes as well, because I mean the donations still are open until the end of the year, so you have a way to get in there. And speaking of Extra Life, we got a question about Extra Life specifically for Sean. This comes to us from Jordan at JLA_15, who asked the question, what was your favorite and or most unexpected thing that happened during your trip to New York? So Sean, what do you think about this question?
Oh, I love this question. Thank you so much. I've got my drink. I've got my coffee. I'm ready to go. What a great question. Man, you spend 24 hours in the same space as really good friends from all over the world. Like, that's sort of like a high level, like, favorite. It's like, we don't get to do that ever. I have a lot to talk about, man. I was on the news. I had a reporter kind of chat with me as I was playing Half Thumb, the Tetris Effect Connected that I progressively got worse at. The night before Extra Life was really special because we all crammed into Lee's house. He invited all of us in there. Andrew Semacek and Mr. Badbit and Kevin Austin and Josh Barboni from PSVG. They were all there. A bunch more people just laughing and having a good time and eating food and hanging out. And Josh got me a big box of Overpower cards, which was so sweet. You can't even imagine, dude. Like, I don't think people hear that I was into Overpower back in the 90s. This was like almost like Magic the Gathering for dummies with Marvel characters. This was my jam as a kid. This was me in the comics world rather than actually being into actual comics. I had the cards. And I've been sort of like recently getting back into them. And he got me a big box of cards that many duplicates, many things that I've already had, but many I didn't. And just so special, man. Really, like the gift itself, the hospitality by Lee and his family and his friends, the opportunity to get together with everybody. I could go on and on, but Extra Life was so special. I'm really glad that I got back into my home country. That was that was also very good. But dude, we got to play video games. We raised a boatload of money. We got some of the best prizes we've ever had. And again, shout out to Xbox Canada, PlayStation Canada, and Ubisoft Canada, giving us just the best. And it really, really made a big difference. We're all writing notes right now, Ryan. We've all got like debrief notes. Me and Badman and a few others, we're going to be looking towards next year, how we can work together even more. I think Badbit and I kind of just learned a lot by teaming up there. So thinking about having like a single page for next year for us all to share rather than you going like, go here for Ryan and go here for Sean and go here for somebody else. Like, I think we'll probably come together within Team Phoenix Overdrive.
For sure. Yeah, because I know this is something that you and I talked about before as well. Like, especially after my Extra Live stream, it just makes it easier to point everyone to go to one place. Yeah. You can have all the prices in one place. The only downside is we'll have to choose one charity between all of us to kind of go on.
That's true.
I think we can make it work. But lastly, before we get into the show proper, Sean, you're on another little thing that just came out of the nowhere this morning that I was not expecting. So, Mr. Famous Superstar Sean Capri, tell me about what happened this morning.
Surprise. Well, again, part of my trip to New York City, I hung out with Joe After Work, one of my favorite streamers. He's a famous streamer. Joe After Work, twitch.tv/Joe After Work. Please go follow him. But also, about an hour after I met up with him, Joey Ferris from Game Explain happened to also be in New York City. He lives, of course, in California. He was there with his family and hanging out, and he met us at Nintendo New York. We had a sweet hang over there, spent way too much time. I bought all the plushies, which was great. And yeah, I guess I might have been just top of mind for him because Joey and I, we go back many, many years. He was one of the first few dozen guests on We the Gamercast back in 2016, and we've been friends ever since. And I've watched him go from, his Game and Talk podcast with Alan all the way through Game Explain, and it's been wonderful to see. So hanging out with him last week, and then it was yesterday at about noon. He's like, hey, man, can you come around 3:30 Pacific time to come talk about the 1-year anniversary of Xbox on Game Explain? I'm like, that sounds perfect. And the thing about it, Ryan, is it was, just kind of like hanging out with Joey. Because I've known him forever. It didn't feel like, oh my gosh, it's a Game Explain thing, which it is, and that's awesome. I just got to have a sweet hang and talk about something I'm really passionate about, being Xbox celebrating its first anniversary. So people should definitely go check that out. I'm sure many of you already have, but anybody who hasn't, it was an honor really to be, just sort of catch up with Joey again in real life, and then to make some content with him is super special, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's awesome to see, especially because it sounds like you guys had like a real conversation about it, just talking, and especially because that's something that the Game Explain does with a lot of their discussions. They're just almost like just talks about whatever the topic is and just having a nice conversation. So I haven't had a chance to watch it at the time we're recording this, just because I was on some other podcast this morning that you'll be hearing about next week. But I'm excited to check it out this afternoon. So definitely check that out. Well, speaking of that, Sean, before we get into what we were playing, we should at least talk about the subject that you guys talked about on that video, at least a little bit. So at the time we're recording this, we've officially hit 1 year of Xbox Series X and S. So we're celebrating the birthday of the Xbox Series X and S. And I've got to say, it's been an awesome year with these consoles, even though we haven't had like a big exclusive title that's exclusive to them. Like I really feel like they've been both been a natural part of my household, even though I don't currently have my Series X, although I'll be getting another one on Monday. But
nice.
Because I actually sold mine to Matt Sawinski on the PlayStation Drive.
I love it. Yes.
Because I have the Halo one coming on Monday. So
yes, of course.
So that they've been a permanent fixture in my household going forward. I love like the fast load times and the way some of the games are enhanced, especially like playing a game like Psychonauts 2, for example, playing it on the old school consoles, because I tried it on One X versus playing it on Series X, and it made just such a big difference with that game in particular. So I do think it's been awesome having these consoles. But Sean, what do you think about the birthday and 1 year of these consoles so far?
The thing that jumps out to me that we actually didn't get a chance to talk about on Game Explain was the sort of like hidden reveal, but also maybe like worst kept secret ever, which was the Series S and the lead up towards that. And, just the way that they launched it, they're like Xbox Series X. And this was after we had the One S and the One X. You had to know that the S was coming. And so there was the Brad Sams, I think, kind of like really blew the lid off of it. But somewhere along the lines, wasn't there like a controller that somebody saw and it said Series X and S kind of like put together in the way that we all know now? Yep. And so that whole journey was something I think is kind of fun and has fond memories for me. And then just the way that both PlayStation and Xbox rolled out with a 2 SKU strategy, but very different, with Xbox coming in, trying to claw back some market share with that Series S. And I will say, after Extra Life, seeing a bunch of Series S's around the room was very, very cool, man. The Series S, I think, plays a really important kind of role in Xbox's expansion to reach more and more players as they crawl back to the glory days of the 360. So that's one thing that really jumps out to me thinking about 1 year ago. What were we thinking about? And it was people trying to figure out if they wanted the full $499 Series X or the $299 Series S without a disc drive in there. So I think it's been a great year. I think you're right, like in terms of this is now a permanent fixture. I can't imagine going back to the One X, which is my number one reason or response to anybody who says, like, do we need these consoles now? And it's like, yeah, I couldn't imagine having spent another year with my One X if, the Series X was going to be an option. I will take the Series X gladly. But really now that we're a year in, I think this is very common for consoles. Like, I think now is when things are going to hit. We're a week out of, or at least you and I have been, or Steve and I have been playing Forza for about a week. Everybody else is going to be playing it as of today or yesterday. Halo is coming out in a couple of weeks. Like, now things are really moving after a year of what I think has really been Game Pass. It's really been the spotlight more than the consoles itself. So that's kind of my jamble on it, man.
Yeah, and plus we've had a lot of really solid games on Xbox this year, whether they're from third parties that also appear on PlayStation, but also we've had a lot of really good first party stuff this year too. So
Sony first party stuff we've had.
Well, there's that, but first party stuff on Xbox though. I mean, you can't discount Psychonauts 2,
of course,
Flight Simulator, Forza, Halo. Like that's a pretty good year for Microsoft first party.
Gears Highbusters continues to be forgotten, and I'm here to not let that happen. Gears Highbusters was awesome, and people, I think, have missed it. Maybe they got into Xbox, say, in like January or February. Like, go back and play that. I'm fairly certain that's on Game Pass. But dude, that like little expansion, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours long. It's not a hefty deal. But if people are looking for things to do to prove the power of the X, it's a super fun experience for sure.
I'm here to tell you that I totally forgot about it, Sean.
I know you did.
That game came out this year.
Most people did, and it was right after the Series X. And for me, like I remember playing games just to see how much better they were. Gears is a showcase, and it gets forgotten in a similar way that like I think Forza Motorsport games get forgotten because it's like, Xbox is all about Forza, Halo, and Gears, and it's like, yeah, those are awesome. Like, don't discount them. Don't forget about them because they're almost cliche at this point. Like they are staples and they deserve people's attention.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It's time for the playlist. 15 minutes into the show, of course. So we should talk about the games we played. So, Sean, I'm going to start with you, even though you just did a lot of talking.
I'm here.
What did you play this week, my friend?
I played games for 24 hours straight for Extra Life.
Yep.
I played Forza, of course. I'm not sure if there's too much more to really say about it at this point, other than that I'm excited that everybody else is jumping in. Now that it's live on Game Pass day and date, I think we're going to be talking about how many people are playing it. But this is, again, kind of repeating what I said last week. It's everything I wanted out of Forza. It is the party atmosphere. The soundtrack is amazing. Now that I'm back on my TV at home, I'm like, reminded of how gorgeous this game is. It's so smooth, and I've got I think I collected last night 3 different Celicas, or as some would say, Toyota Celicas. Ryan, I've got my Supras, I got all my Toyotas. It is excellent. It's so good. I want to go to do all the arcade things. I want to do all my accolades. Forza Horizon 5 has captured my heart, and I think it is a early contender. I'm still early in it. I think it's got to be up for Game of the Year, man. They've delivered on the potential of Forza. I think at least it was built with the third one, and it's so good. Have you jumped into it at all? I know it just jumped into Game Pass just yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have it installed.
It just went up yesterday. I mean, first of all, if I had bought the early access like Ultimate bundle, I would have been able to play it on Friday. But I knew that what was probably going to happen is I just was not going to end up playing it enough. And sure enough, I played it for an hour and a half yesterday, Sean. And I think
what do you think?
I think I'm going to be uninstalling the game and probably not going back.
Shut up! What?
Yeah, I mean just to throw it out there, racing games I think are okay, but are not a genre that I'm super into or anything like that. And I like what I played of Forza Horizon 5. I think that it's a well put together game with lots of stuff to do. But honestly, my history with the series is I just don't really play them for very long. I don't really stick with them for very long.
God.
And again, it's nothing against the game. It's just personally a Ryan Turford thing. I'm not super into them. So I'm personally probably going to end up putting it down. Like I still want to probably play it once or twice more before I decide to put the game down. But this combined with the fact that Shin Megami Tensei 5 comes out tomorrow, Sean, and some other games that are coming up that I want to get to, this one's probably good to get put on the back burner for me personally. But
here's how I want to tackle this. I am tempted to say go to change.org to start a petition to see if you want Steve Vevgari as the new co-host of the Xbox Drive. I'm tempted to say that, but I won't say those things, Ryan. What I will say is this is actually what I think makes the show as good as it is that all those games you just talked about, I'm like, no, not even a little bit Shin Megami Tensei 5, like not even close. Yeah. And for me to be like, this is one of the best games I've played this year. It's my new obsession as I want to try and carve out time for Riders Republic as well. Forza is everything to me, and it's like, it doesn't hit your radar. I think that actually makes for like a good podcast. That's what people should be looking for, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like whenever I talked about this before on, I think we talked about this on the You Make a Pre podcast, but like whenever I'm looking for a new podcast host, I always want someone who likes has some of the stuff that I like, but like is also different in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about our dynamic. Whereas like I'm not afraid to go out there and say that Forza Horizon 5 isn't for me, but like if I was to evaluate this as a critic, I definitely would be evaluating it in a much more positive light than what I
Totally.
Because I do think that again that it's visually gorgeous. I love the setting of the game. Again, all the activities are there, and there's just a ton to do, and it's all really fun. It's just not really speaking to me personally, and that's something I recognize as just knowing who I am personally. So,
like, I'm worried about the other games that I could be playing. You know, like other games are going to suffer because of Forza Horizon 5. Is basically where I'm at. You know.
Yeah. In fact, I think Forza Horizon 5 is literally your Final Fantasy 14 for me. Where like when the Final Fantasy 14 expansion comes out on December 3rd, Sean, all other games are being put on the back burner at that point.
Yeah, it's the apocalypse, man.
Exactly.
It's like everything gets obliterated. I need to finalize a couple details. I would love to share it with people here because I know there's a lot of people jumping into Forza Horizon, but we're going to be teaming up with PSVG and creating like I don't know what it's called, like a club or something like that. And it might be called You, Me, and PSVG. I actually think
it's already up. Like I think Donnie tweeted about that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Then there it is.
If you go to Eat the Hype on Twitter, Donnie Reese's Twitter, I think he posted that while you were doing Extra Life, which is probably why you missed that. So, yeah.
Well, I remember we were talking about it at the table. Somebody had yelled out, like, should it be like You, Me, and PSVG? I'm like, that sounds awesome. So if it's up, I actually, some other people might be joining it before me because I'll have to do it when I get back home.
For sure. Well, speaking of Forza,
so
Sean, we got a question about Forza from Seumas MacIsaac at Famous Seumas, who asked the question, has playing Forza Horizon 5 made you want to go to Mexico? Also, is the game visually impressive on Xbox Series X? Now, again, I don't have Series X right now, so I can't play it on there. So this is more of a question for you, Sean. But
is it a question about X or S? Is it visually impressive on X? Oh, well, of course. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can answer that. So yeah, go ahead.
It looks good, but first of all, playing the game, I've been to Mexico a few times, and
same.
I like Mexico, but I don't generally love hot areas of the world. Like I like going to areas that are colder. So Mexico, I think it's cool to go there and whatnot. But the game didn't necessarily make me want to go visit Mexico. But what about you, Sean? What do you think about this question? Yeah,
it reminds me of I visited Mexico on both sides of the coast. Actually, been to Mexico a number of times for weddings and just various vacations and things like that. You know, I was 20 at one point, so Mexico was the place to go. I don't know that this is necessarily like a geographical, duplication of real Mexico. You've got like the Aztec temples, an hour or like, just down the street from the cities and the beaches and everything like that. So, but it does kind of just remind me of like those good times, like, cause I've seen it, it seems more familiar to me. And I don't know, I don't necessarily know if I want to go back to Mexico for that, but I feel like I'm there. And I think that's one of the most impressive things is because it's a racing game, I get so much of the atmosphere, and I think it's more of just I have an appreciation for Mexico than me wanting to go travel there, if that makes any sense. Because I have a bit of a bias now. I want to go on a cruise. I got married on a cruise. I love cruising. I'm an old man at heart. That's really what I want to do if I were to travel somewhere. But this is the perfect setting. I think they're really going to struggle with what's next unless it's Japan. Like, there's few places I think that will match what is now, Australia was the best. Mexico is great. I think they had one in like the Mediterranean. I think that might have been Forza Horizon 2. The setting plays such a huge role in my enjoyment here, and it has to be something fun. So yeah, that's not to take anything away from the setting at all. It's just different. It hits different for me.
Well, especially like when you look at Forza Horizon, the original Forza Horizon, which was in like Colorado.
Right, it was in America, yeah.
And then the UK base for 4, yeah, like those were just less interesting to us. And I think a lot of that just has to do with we live in North America. So they're just so similar to where we live already that it's like not visually interesting for us to, visit those places.
It's a festival. And like, where do the best festivals kind of happen? Like, I feel like Mexico makes a lot of sense. It feels like Australia makes a lot of sense. So there are really wonderful landscapes to explore, but I'm not there to like, I'm driving too fast to really like appreciate like the look of them. It's more about the feel to me. So they nailed it this time with 5.
For sure. So moving on, I played another game this week, Sean, because I had to bust out a spooky game because we're a little bit past Halloween.
Yeah.
But I ended up playing Fatal Frame, the Maiden of Black Water, which is actually a port of a Wii U game that was actually a Wii U exclusive, coming to us from Tecmo. And the Fatal Frame series is like a long-running horror series going all the way back to the PS2. In fact, I did an episode of The Crossroads all about Fatal Frame 2, because that's actually one of my favorite original Xbox horror games. And it was cool to get a chance to play this, because I have a Wii U, but I never picked this up on Wii U because they had like a weird like buying system where you downloaded this demo and then you had to buy the game in parts. It was weird. So I decided to wait on it, and I'm glad I waited, because this game looks really good on current gen. Like, I think they did a great job with the port. And basically you play as these 3 different characters, and they're almost like missing persons investigators. And they're basically going to find these people that have been, quote unquote, spirited away to this mountain in Japan. And you suspect ghosts might be behind it. And it turns out that there are ghosts in this game. But luckily you have a object called the Camera Obscura, which is basically a special camera that if you take pictures of the ghosts, it actually like stores their souls in the camera. So that's how you defeat the enemies in this game. And
it has very expensive film. I think that costs a lot to do that.
It does. Like, it's got special film for the cameras. But yeah, I
Polaroid.
really, as someone who's been a big fan of the series for years now, and I'm so happy that we have a returning entry, even though it's older because it did come out on Wii U. I really enjoyed my time with this game. I think it's really fun. If you like survival horror games like Resident Evil, but like having it be a little more creepy since you have to like get up and close and personal with the ghosts in order to take pictures of them, and some of them can be like really creepy. I think you're really going to enjoy this. I think it's a lot of fun. So definitely check it out. It's not a full price experience either. I think it's 53 Canadian dollars. So kind of an odd price.
Round it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's just the conversion's weird. So
of course.
it's not a full price experience. But I think it's definitely worth it. I think it's fun if you like horror games. So check it out.
Very cool, man.
Last up, I know you wanted to give a shout out to Project Winter, so tell me about that real quick.
That's exactly what I want to do. I want to give a shout out to Project Winter. I got to Extra Life and everybody was just kind of like, Project Winter. I'm like, I've never heard about this game. What the heck is it? And so I installed it. I did the tutorial. I was kind of like, it's not about this kind of game. You're kind of stuck in a desolate landscape. It's cold. I get that already in Canada. It's snowy. There's wolverines and, well, they're probably wolves after you. And you're kind of wandering around gathering resources to try and fix things so that you can be rescued is basically the flow here. But then after the tutorial, you get thrown in, it's a multiplayer game. It's a social multiplayer game. It's a lot like Among Us, in a great way. And I kind of like turn my nose up at that because I'm like, I've played Among Us a lot. I'm kind of done with that. But you start in a cabin with, I don't know if there was 4 or 6 of us, and 2 people are traders. And the rest of them are going to try to, gather the resources to fix the radio, to call in a rescue and things like that. But there are 2 people among you who will try to sabotage the mission. And it was super fun, man. You can collect a bunch of like parts of weapons to then go to a bench and craft your weapons and then go shoot somebody in the face. You can grab a bear trap or create a mine. And as everybody goes into the cabin to warm up, you can do what I did and just wait outside with your shotgun. Blast everybody in the face. It's like, to me, the deception, the treacherous act of turning on somebody is more, I think, satisfying in this with Project Winter than with Among Us. Because you don't just like stand next to somebody and go like press kill. Like you have to kill them. You can punch them in the face. You can take an axe to them. You can shoot them with a shotgun. So there's a little bit more on that front. And dude, super fun. I was surprised by it because I was not enjoying the tutorial, and then once we got in with Jace and a bunch of others, it was a great time, man.
And plus, going back to your moment that you described of pointing the shotgun to the door, I love the best part about that was you like missing and not killing them, and then like all like circling you and then just beating you to death.
They rushed me, like get him, he's the bad guy. Good times. Hilarity ensued, man. Yep, good times.
Good time. So it's on Game Pass, so definitely check that out as well if you've got some friends as well.
There's your hidden gem for the week.
There you go. So let's slam the brakes on this conversation. Let's get through a couple of news stories because we're running a little bit short on time. First up, speaking of Forza Horizon 5, Phil Spencer took to Twitter to announce that Forza Horizon 5 has surpassed 4.5 million players across PC, cloud, and console on launch day. It's the largest launch of any Xbox Game Studios title, and the peak concurrent count is 3 times higher than the highest number set by Forza Horizon 4. So
bigger than Halo, Ryan. Is that what that means? Bigger than Halo.
That's what that means. Bigger than Halo at this point.
Holy crap.
Crazy to think about. And I think it's just the fact that it's on Game Pass, the fact that it's on 3 different platforms, which again, that's assuming we put cloud as a console. That's a lot of people checking out a game that people constantly say is like a niche genre, like racing is kind of a niche genre. Whereas I think this is definitely Forza's coming up party, but I think this is awesome news. What do you think, Sean?
I'm totally with you, man. And it actually makes me think about Halo. When I'm like, this is bigger than any other Halo game, like, then what does that say about Halo?
I definitely saw that on Twitter from a few people. Like they're like, what if this is what Forza can do, imagine what Halo's going to do being free to play.
Good God. Yeah, you said it best. This is the coming out party for Forza. I think it's actually the coming out party for Xbox in a lot of ways. I think we've been just waiting for Xbox to have like its big deal, its big hitter, and this is it. I want to keep that in context in terms of like bigger than Halo, because I think you look at a lot of games and you talk about when you talk about millions of anything, you kind of go like, what does that even mean? Like, it's such a gigantic number that it's actually hard to conceptualize sometimes. And you see games like Mario Kart, we talked about that on the Nintendo Drive, doing like 38 million copies or something like that. It's not exactly the same thing, but 4.5 million people playing the same game on the same day is like insane. I think there was another stat going around when you play Forza Horizon 5, there's like leaderboards across the number of different areas, and it will show you're ranked like 46% of X number of players. And there were screenshots going around saying that there were 900,000 players this weekend. Before the game came out, there's almost 1 million people or maybe more who bought the game ahead of time. They got the ultimate deal, the ultimate version. So obviously a beast, an absolute monstrous launch for Forza Horizon 5, which makes me very happy because the world itself, like you can jump in online or you can just play solo. There's lots to do. So very, very exciting for not just Forza, but for Halo and really for the future of Xbox. And what did Phil say? Like, this is the realization of a promise or something like that? Like, this is the vision that you would have a game come out into Game Pass and you'd have many, many millions of people playing that game. It's a huge shift for the industry. Yeah, and especially like this is just day one. Like I imagine that the lifetime, like this game's gonna have legs, I think. So I'm curious to know how that number really evolves over time as well. It's word of mouth.
Yeah, like I think hopefully this means more and more people jump in and it puts into context something that we've talked about on the PlayStation Drive a little bit. But when people don't think about Gran Turismo being one of Sony's biggest franchises on that side, because it's a racing franchise for the same reasons that they talk about Forza in this way. But Gran Turismo is one of the best-selling franchises on PlayStation, like in their history. So having a game of that size and of that caliber on Xbox, I think is quite a testament. So
this is why you saw like
this
is why you saw like Dreamcast and Sega wanting like football games and like sports in general. They are very, very popular. They cut through, mainstream. So, and I think also Aaron Greenberg has talked about this as well. Like the notion of creating so much value into Game Pass has people talking about the game. So if you have 4.5 million people playing this, all telling their friends like that they're playing this game and they can get it through Game Pass. Like now the machine starts to work a little bit, and that's man, it's very exciting because you want to see when companies kind of go for something big and ambitious, you don't want to see them fail. I don't think we've seen that before, and it's very dissatisfying. You don't want to see like a Dreamcast fail, and you don't want to see something that was ahead of its time, and like that's not a great legacy to have. It means that it failed. It means that it flopped, and to have them kind of have this work out it's good for us because we like to podcast about it, and it's good for gamers because we like to play the games. Yeah. And I'm hoping that, like, what I would love to see is maybe them hit like 10 million by the end of the year. I think that would be amazing to see. So, yeah, I guess we'll hear more about it as the situation unfolds. But lots of people playing Forza. And if you want to play multiplayer, it doesn't sound like you're going to have a hard time finding a game at all. So, there you go.
All right, let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It's time for the carpool, and we're moving on because we got lots of questions this week. So, folks at home, if you would like to have your question read and answered on the carpool, you can either follow us on Twitter at Yumi Caprice. We put up a question post every single Tuesday, usually with Sean's face. Sometimes it's an anime gift from me. Depends on the week. Or you can leave a comment on YouTube. So if you're watching the video version, just leave your question there and we'll answer it. Or if you join our Discord, the Yumi and Capri Discord, it's free to join. The link is in the show notes. You can leave your question there as well. Just like Garrett Bland at Bland Explosion did. We know him. He asked the question, do you think early access will be a common tactic for first-party releases to make a quick buck? I would shell out early money, extra money for Avowed or Elder Scrolls 6 if I can play them early. I mean, this is something we've actually been seeing Xbox do for a long time, whether it's Forza, but also Gears did this as well with the Ultimate Edition for Gears, and some of their other first-party releases. So I think that this isn't a new tactic for Microsoft.
Not
it just
even a
happens
little
to be this time around, it seems to have worked really well with the day one releases of Forza. But Sean, what do you think about that question?
It's also for a game that they have a lot of eyes on. I think this is almost like a Nintendo strategy in that like they haven't really been talking about many games in the last little while. A lot of eyes on what's next for Xbox, which is Forza. And so they had it with I think Forza Horizon 3 even. Like this has been something that's been going on a long time. Dave Moore and I have talked about this on this show back in the day. And the logic that we sort of established there that I think holds true even to this day is, let's say you have a game that comes out like day one. That is the most expensive that game will be. And if you push out maybe 90 days afterwards, it's going to be cheaper from that. But if you go backwards from that 90 days, back up to the launch day, and it becomes more expensive. If you go even further before the launch day, then it's even more expensive to that. And Peter Moore actually talked about this, being that the price point depends on the audience. And there's always going to be a proper price point for a particular set of gamers. And for some people, they want to play that game earlier than the rest of the people. They will pay they'll buy it at a high price. And I think you will see this more and more. I don't have a single issue with it at all, Ryan. I will choose not to do it. And I won't go, well, if it's available, why don't they just give it to me, at that point in time? I think they're more than welcome to sell it at a higher price if people want to play it earlier. And yes, you're right. You'll see much more of this, I think. Yeah,
I think it makes sense for multiplayer games like this to do that. I would be a little more upset if it was a single player only game with a campaign that they did this with, because then you'd be worried about spoilers, for 3 or 4 days or however long the expert long.
That's true.
The process is, whereas Forza, you don't really care about that. So
I think they do with Gears too. Like it's not just Forza.
Yep.
They did it with like this is, which obviously had a campaign, which obviously had things happen.
That was something I was very worried about. But luckily with Gears, they were smart about it because they rolled that version into Game Pass. So when you got Gears for Game Pass, you also got it early. So you didn't have to worry about that.
That's right. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, whereas Forza, they obviously didn't do it that way. Like you had to buy the extra add-on pack to give you it early if you wanted to do the Game Pass route. So that's why I think it's a little bit.
Well said.
I think it's like an apples and oranges thing, and it's it's on a game by game basis. Like if they did this with Halo, for just the campaign, I would be more upset about it, I think, and be worried about spoilers. So that's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Next up, Brendan Myers at The Winter Gamer. We know him here too. You probably saw him this weekend.
I did.
Asks, now that you have traveled with your Series S, what are some things that you should make sure to do to make your gaming experience the best on the road? So this is actually not the first time you've traveled with your Series S, because you also brought it to Toronto with you, whereas I've never traveled with mine, Sean. So what do you think about Brendan's question?
First of all, Brendan Myers showed up with his Series S in a like awesome briefcase kind of thing. Like it was very smart with foam inside. And that is one thing that I recommend for other people. I have a wonderful sleeve for my laptop, which keeps it very well protected. I did not have that for my Series S, and I regret it big time. It's got a couple scuff marks on it, as well as my controller as well. So I don't know if necessarily that has anything to do with the gaming experience, but I'm disappointed in myself for not thinking about protecting it a little bit more. But man, it is the perfect console to bring on the go. I had to I had to bring it out. Every time I went through security, Ryan, I had to bust out my personal laptop, my work laptop, my Nintendo Switch, and my Series S. And they each needed their own bin. I was so high maintenance going through the security things at the airport. But that's something to keep in mind. And I don't know, everything else just worked out. You bring your power cord and your HDMI cable. It's all good. I also had my expansion pack, the extra storage, which worked out really well for me. But I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to add to that, man.
Yeah, it sounds like Brendan Meyer's briefcase. It sounded like the, if you would rent a console from Blockbuster back in the day. Like that's the type of briefcase they'd give you, like your N64 in. Because I remember renting an N64 from Blockbuster. That's what they do. They pull out the suitcase and it's got foam and stuff in it. Yeah, exactly. All right, next up, Plastic Hearts Podcast at Plastic Heart Pod asks the question, could we see Elden Ring on Game Pass soon after release?
Ooh,
Speaking of Game Pass, you think that next September when Deathloop launches there, will they release DLC that's exclusive for Xbox? I feel Xbox will add something special to the release since it was out 1 year later. So first of all, I think that Elden Ring will probably, if I go with my gut, I think it'll come to Game Pass at some point because it's coming from Bandai Namco, and Bandai Namco has a history of putting almost all their games on Game Pass, usually 6 months to a year after they're out. I mean, we saw that with Scarlet Nexus, we saw it with Jump Force, we saw it with most of the games they come out with. I imagine
Jump Force is shutting down, by the way. Did you see that? Jump Force is shutting down the servers.
That was actually on one of our news stories this week that we actually ended up skipping over. But,
bye, Jump Force.
There's that. So I imagine it comes to Game Pass at some point. And by the way, we didn't talk about Elden Ring because they had gameplay for Elden Ring. It just looks like more open world Dark Souls to me, and I just don't care about that. But
I care. I hope it comes to Game Pass. I don't know if I can see it happening day and date, but you know what? We don't. Again, I think Xbox is doing a good job of focusing our attention. We only are really focused on Forza right now and Halo, and then what's next going day and date into Game Pass? I don't know that we know that necessarily. So they could do. We're coming up on the Game Awards. They could have something to say there. I think that would be really cool. I think this game is going to be massive, and Xbox needs more of those partnerships, Ryan. Like big games, big games. And we had that in 2021 with Outriders, which was a surprise, fun time, and a gigantic get with MLB. So give us the rings, man.
I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would say Elden Ring probably comes to Game Pass within 12 months of its release. That's what I'm going to say on the show right now. You can mark it on your calendars that it'll come sometime by like January 2023, I think. But as far as the Deathloop question about DLC for Xbox, honestly, I don't really think they're going to do this. If anything, I would actually see them maybe doing exclusive DLC for PlayStation for them losing exclusivity, kind of like what we're seeing with Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to do any DLC for Deathloop at this point. So probably not.
I don't think, and I think they're going to be focusing on what's next rather than recouping. It feels like that would be a move to kind of make up for the fact that we didn't, Xbox fans didn't get it a year earlier. And I don't think that that's the game that they're playing. I think they're just looking forward to what's next from the studio. What is it? Redfall? Is that what it's called?
Redfall. Yeah.
Yeah. Nailed it.
All right. Last question of the week comes to us from Court Lalonde at Court Lalonde. And I should have actually brought this up earlier because I forgot Court actually asked this particular question. But he asks, with the player count of Forza being so high at launch, what do you anticipate the numbers are going to be for Halo Infinite? So we talked about this a little bit.
I love it.
Sean, let's guess now. What do we think the launch day numbers for Halo Infinite are going to be like? I'll go first. I'm going to say I bet that there are 5 billion players who play Halo on day one.
Okay, so are we doing Price is Right rules, closest to the real number, and if you're over, you're dead? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you said 5.
Yeah.
I'll say 5,000,001.
You're such a jerk, Sean.
Just kidding. I think it'll be closer to 6. I think it'll be 6.25 million players on launch day. I think that's. I think I've got you. I think I've got you.
Even if they just say 6 million, Sean, because they usually just round to that million, I'll still give it to you anyways.
Okay. Well, you don't have to. That's why I think 6.25. If they say 6, you win. That's the rules.
Perfect.
I know the rules.
That's the rules. That's how we play Price is Right. That's how you lose at Plinko if you go too far over, Sean. What is this show? All right, we got to go. But before we go, Sean, plugs go.
I think this show was the best show we've done yet so far. You can find me on Twitter at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. You can find me streaming at Twitch, twitch.tv/Sean Capri, and on Game Explain, for goodness sakes. Very, very cool, man. That's it for me.
That's nice, my friend. You're so famous now. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on Twitter at Yumi Capri's, as well as on YouTube, youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 215 of the Xbox Drive, and we out.
I wonder what the real number is going to be for Halo. If it's going to be 6.25673433924. That's way too many decimal points. It doesn't even make any sense. I'll see you guys next week. Bye! The Xbox Drive is fueled by patrons at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to the nearly 70 patrons who support us each and every month. With special thanks to our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the Nintendo Drive. You can support Jonathan Brown at youtube.com/GamingPurpleMonkey. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and all of our gold members, Argo, Benji Kong, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Dr. Doom, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, Skinny Matt, and Xavier Reyes. If you'd like to support this show, go to patreon.com/YumiCapri and choose the Patreon tier that works for you.